Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Sean Bice, how you doing today?
Oh man, I'm great after a short drive back from New Jersey over to Ohio. So pretty sweet. I'm ready for Barber.
Well, anyway, welcome to our listeners to another episode of Off Track, our weekly podcast. I'm Paul Carruthers, and you just heard from Sean Bice. Like he says, he's in Ohio. I'm in California, and we meet occasionally at the races. We were just at New Jersey Motorsports Park, and he's bragging about his short drive. I had like a flight that just seemed like it lasted forever, but whatever. We're fortunate we have airplanes, I guess. So I'm excited about today's guest. We have with us Stefano Mesa, who's a Stock 1000 racer, not just a Stock 1000 racer, but one of our best Stock 1000 racers. He's currently second in the championship. Andrew Lee won the title last week at New Jersey, but Stefano's been second pretty much throughout the year. He's had 7 podiums, including a race win at MotoAmerica in the second of the 2 races. And like I said, he's second in the points, and it looks like he's going to stay second in the points. Michael Gilbert is behind him, but he's behind him by a little bit. So I think Stefano's in a pretty good spot. Stefano, let's bring you in now. From looking at it from my standpoint, you've had a very, very good season. Is it something that you're happy with?
Well, yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. And I mean, yeah, it was a good season. I think we put up a pretty good fight with Andrew. He had a fall this year, and we tried bringing it to him even on his coast. So we're happy about the year. And I mean, I'm sad we couldn't win the championship because an incident happened, but it comes with racing, correct? So we just got to keep going forward and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think you showed a lot with how you handled that situation. Obviously, what we're talking about is Michael Gilbert. He crashed behind you in Pittsburgh and took you with him. Obviously, neither of you scored points. Fortunately, neither of you were hurt. Michael banged his head pretty good and actually ended up sitting out last week in New Jersey. But it was a case of 2 nice guys who don't generally run into people running into each other. So, good job on your part by keeping your cool there and realizing exactly what it was. And that's just a couple of guys coming together when they're trying real hard to win races.
Nah, yeah, I mean, you know what? It's racing incidents, and it's gonna happen sometime or another. And I'm just happy none of us got hurt. It does suck about the championship, but I mean, we'll just keep looking forward. And I'm happy he didn't get hurt. And I think he's out at riding Horizon right now, riding some R1. So I'm happy for him that he's back in pace, and hopefully he'll be out from Barber.
Have you ever been knocked down before by a guy's face?
Tell me one more time.
Have you ever been knocked down before by a guy's face?
Yeah, I can say I have. Now I can say I have.
But not before this, though. That was a first for you, I'm sure.
That's a first and always. I mean, that's a first and unique, I think.
When that happened, so we the camera stayed on you guys pretty good, and we always look. I mean, it's human nature to look for a reaction, and it's human nature for you to react. I'm sure you were upset, but you didn't really show it too much. And I mean, it seemed like it didn't take too long, because before you had that Stefano Mesa smile on your face that you always had. Did you guys talk to each other, and did he apologize? Take us through how that went. And did you get pretty upset when you didn't even know what happened probably at the moment, did you?
I mean, yeah, I was super upset at the moment, but I came up to him to see what happened and what went on. And at this point, I had no clue what happened. I just knew I got taken out because all I felt was a hit from the back. And I went up to him, and when I pull up to him, he was bleeding out of his nose and mouth, and I was like, "Oh, the dude is hurt. The dude is hurt. So I better calm down and just talk it out. So I mean, it sucks about the championship, but again, we're racing motorcycles. So anything can happen."
So Stefano, in the last year I think it was in the VIR paddock, I remember you showed up, and I knew you weren't racing a full season for us, but I've always been real fond of you, and it goes back to Road America when you had that win in Super Sport, and you wagered with your dad that if you won, he would quit smoking. He'd have to give up smoking, and sure enough, you won. So tell us about when I saw you. I'd be like, "Hey, you going to race the whole season?" And you said, "No, I don't think so." And you were doing a lot of racing in Weira and probably doing pretty well with it with contingency. But this year, when I asked you, you seemed, you kind of pretty much announced you were going to try to do the whole season. And I don't know if you did every single round, but I think you did this year, didn't you?
So yeah, I mean, last year we were following the MotoAmerica with the Weira just because the Pirelli guys have helped me for a couple of years now, so I'm practically with them, and that's why I haven't gone pro racing since. Um, so this year was just a matter of fact of, you know what, let's just go and see what happens. And we, at the beginning, we were only going to do a couple of events, try and change the Kawasaki contingency since it's so good. And since we started in this coast, and then we did good. We were in the podium every single race in this side, and then after Road America, after my win this year, we ended up leading the championship. So me, my dad, and my mom and Mike looked at each other, and we were like, "So now what we do?" And from there, we were like, try and get some funds together and figure some way to get to the other coast, and it worked out. So I'm glad I got over to the other coast, and again we gave it a run for the championship, but stuff happens, so we'll see what keeps going on.
Now you do a lot of racing, obviously. I mean, I think CCS and different things on your off weekends with a lot of success. And did I see? Do you race a BMW at those races?
So I raced a BMW last year because their contingency was so good, but for this year it wasn't so good, so I went ahead and sold that, and that's kind of why I went pro racing, just so I could keep racing. I tried to go racing with the money I earn. I don't try to go in my pocket to go racing, So club racing's been good to me, and that's what made me enough little money to go pro racing, and that's how I found my program. And it's pretty much just me, my dad, my mom, and Mike Fitzgerald, which is the chassis guy, and I think we do a pretty decent job at it, being a four-man crew.
Oh, you really do. You do a fantastic job. And the thing is, I mean, I don't know if people realize because you've been around and raced for a while that you're still only 25 years old. So you're still a very young rider, got a long career ahead of you. With how you've done so far this year and how it's probably going to end up for you this year, will you probably be back in Stock 1000 for 2020?
You know what? I don't have an answer for you guys yet. We'll end up Barber and see how we do, and we'll see what goes on for next year.
Sean, he'll be
Hopefully,
back.
we'll be able to. Hopefully, if I get some stuff together and some help towards my end, maybe I'll be back. But it's hard to go racing. It's hard to go spend a lot of money on a weekend, and only in MotoAmerica this year we had only one race a weekend, so then we have a 50-50 chance of stuff going bad, and then that one weekend goes bad and everything goes backwards.
Yeah, I mean, we announced it. We announced Indy today, so you're gonna have a round that's not too far from you in Florida. Or, it's pretty far, but it's not as far as going out west. So that might help, right?
Yeah, correct. That's nice. I saw that, and I think that's a great addition to the calendar. That's a great place. I was there, I think, back in 2009 or 8, racing the Milwaukee class.
Wow.
That's right.
And so I think it's a great addition to the calendar.
So Stefano, I know you have a career away from motorcycle racing that keeps you busy during the day. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think it's a pretty interesting gig.
Correct. I do have an 8 to 5. So I actually work with pharmaceuticals. I work as a subcontractor for Pfizer. The company I actually work for is called Biothermal. What we do is we validate new equipment that's gonna come into production. So we validate the equipment before it goes into production, and we test the equipment, and then we work on the equipment as well.
Now, is that the
Wow.
company? Is that the company that makes Sean's Viagra?
Correct. So Pfizer is known because of their Viagra. That's one of the
Oh,
that
okay.
they
So now
are
I
known for.
okay. Now I know why he's so friendly with you, because you probably get him his stuff for free.
No,
Yeah,
no, I only work on the equipment. That's about it.
Well, you know what's funny, Stefano? You know that aside, and yeah, you notice I got kind of quiet there for a little bit. But that aside, so this is weird, Stefano. I did not know until you said biothermal. Now I know for a fact that biothermal is a sponsor of Westby Racing. That's the same company, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Wow. So, boy, if they sponsor Westby, how come they don't throw a little your way?
I've asked myself the same question, but I'm doing a great thing, and he's giving me a good chance to learn and maybe do a career. So I'm happy he's letting me do that, and hopefully he'll come on board the program soon enough.
So he must be into motorcycle racing then. I know Chuck Giacchetto probably got that brand, that sponsor for Westby. So that must be the guy just as interested in racing. Is that true?
So he actually races. He does a little bit of WERA and CCS, and that's how I met him. Last year, I met him when I was doing a lot of the club racing up here, chasing the contingency. And there was about 3 months that I stayed at my friend's house up here in North Carolina because all the rounds were close to each other and it was less traveling from Florida. And we got together and he offered me a job and we went from there. So I moved to North Carolina about a year ago, and I've been working for Biothermal since then and racing motorcycles, trying to race motorcycles.
But your mom and dad are still down in Boca Raton then?
Correct. My mom and dad live in Boca, and they love the sport as much as I do, or more than I do. So of course they come with me everywhere I go.
That's pretty awesome.
I know you're originally from Colombia. I mean, how long were you there?
So my dad's Colombian and my mom's Guatemalan. I was in Colombia for about 12 years. And then we moved to the United States, to Florida, and we went from there.
And when did you start riding motorcycles, in Florida or in Colombia?
So I did a lot of motocross and four-wheelers in Colombia, and I did a little road racing, but over in Colombia there's only one big track, and it was almost like street racing, and it was kind of dangerous. So when we moved over here, we bought a Milwaukee 250 and we started doing the USGPRU. And it was actually when Lewis, McFadden, Gerloff, it was when all the fast kids nowadays, we were back then battling in Milwaukee's 250. So we kind of grew up all together,
That's cool. So this is a little interesting side note. So Stefano, you are from Medellin, Colombia, and there are several riders are from Medellin. Obviously, Martin Cardenas, David Gaviria, Tomas Puerta. They're all from Medellin. Did you know them when you were there? Did you know of Martin since he's a little bit older? Do you have any relationship with any of those riders since they're from your hometown and home country?
So actually, we know each other since, they know me. They're all older than me, and they know me since I'm a baby. But I know Tomas, I know Gaviria, and Martin's probably the closest I've been to myself. My mom and her mom, his mom have still a good relationship. So, we spent a lot of time together when I was growing up, and when we moved to the United States, and I was a little bit younger, and he was racing the AMAs when we started kind of following him to his races, and my parents were going, and he kind of guided us a little bit into the whole pro racing.
That's pretty cool. I didn't realize there was that many people. That's interesting that all those guys, it's not a huge country, And for you guys to have that common background is pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure. We all grew up racing little bikes, you know?
That's great.
Now, looking at that, though, when I can picture all you little punks racing those Milwaukees, who was the fastest at the time?
We had great battles, you know, and it was always a battle for who was going to finish in the podium, and there was plenty of crashing between all of us, and we always had a great time, that's for sure.
So you were the fastest, and you're just being modest.
That's what I think.
No.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
We all went pretty good, you know. We all went pretty good back in the day.
That's funny.
I have to laugh because, you know, we did the podcast, the video version of the podcast last week with those super fans from Harrisburg. If you haven't had a chance to see that podcast or listen to it, it's a good one. And, you know, I think we made reference to it during the podcast, but we were all at New Jersey and it was dark by the time we were doing the podcast. And all of a sudden, this person just all of a sudden appears in the glass doorway with this crazy, crazy face. And I literally thought it was like the New Jersey devil that they talk about, but it turned out it was that little chupacabra, Stefano Mesa, who said he was going to, well, tell us what you were planning to do when you saw us, Stefano.
Well, I was about to jump in and start freaking out just how they do, but I was scared you guys, I was afraid you guys were going to freak out and, you know, get mad at me. So I decided not to do it, but
it would have been
pretty awesome.
It would have been
perfect. It would have been pretty awesome.
It's a good thing you did it because we were like, oh, Stefano, we tried to get him on before, but he was working. So let's see if we can work around his schedule and get him on here. And sure enough, you are. So that's cool. Those guys really, you know, I can see for obvious reasons with your personality, but you know, some people think that they're just Yamaha guys, but they're fans of a lot of racers. And with you, I mean, they're obviously big fans of yours. Is that correct?
I mean, yeah, they're in general, they're just fan of racing and they love racing, and I think they care for all of us, you know, and obviously everybody has their favorite, but they go to the track and they show respect and they have a great time and they keep everybody happy. And I think the events that they show up to are just great, you know, it makes it that much better.
Yeah, Sean, I don't know about you, but like there seems like there's a time like on Sunday afternoon, it's about like 2:30 and I'm like, I just wish I was those guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Because I think they're having a lot more fun than I am.
Yeah. But except think of this, though. Those guys have to get up on Monday morning and go to work.
Well, that's true.
They must have to pour down the aspirin, you know, to try to get anywhere. Because they definitely enjoy
drinking
it.
Straight, that's like a 3-day hangover.
Yeah.
I don't even know how they can do it. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's got to be a little reality check. They're very cool.
Stefano, tell us about your Kawasaki. I want fans to understand kind of with Stock 1000 what you can't do to the bike versus a super bike, but what you can change on it versus a stock bike, and how much you have changed it. Is yours as spec'd up as it can be for that class, or still some things that you can do in the class to make it faster? Can you tell us about that whole thing?
Nah, so actually in the Stock 1000 class, you can do a few things to the bike, right? So my bike's not spec'd out all the way to the class, but it's a front running bike and it's great. It's built with whatever is needed to go fast, you know? So my bike pretty much has a full exhaust from Graves. It has K-Tech suspension. It was prepped by KWS Motorsports. And then from there, me and my dad do all the maintenance and whatever we have to do it. And then Mike Thermosman works in the chassis and the suspension, and we kind of do it old fashioned. In the class, you can run potentiometers and data, and we actually don't run none of that. We kind of do it the old school, and we kind of chase the setup all weekend, you know, till we find something that is good enough to go racing on. And I think we've done a great job with the setup, and I think we've done a great job throughout the year. And the bike is built with whatever is needed to go fast, you know.
What you just explained there is that, I mean, I tend to notice with you, you're not one of the fastest guys until the race starts. And is that a byproduct of not having the data and taking a little longer to work through your setup?
Correct. So, I mean, for example, Andrew Lee, last year, he was on the same bike, pretty much going to the same places. So they already have some data from last year. So they can kind of start from there, and they have data and a couple extra help to get to a good setup of the bike faster, to just get going with lap and just keep working for the race, towards the race. And we kind of do it the old school. We're kind of doing a change here every session. We try something different, see what works, what doesn't work, so we take a little bit more time, but how you said, for the race, we're being on pace. So, I mean, we're there to race, not to qualify or practice, right?
Yeah, well said.
That's very true. And do you, so I mentioned before, I hate to keep drilling this point home, but it really surprised me that, like I said, you've been around for a while, but you're still only 25 years old. And what are your aspirations? I mean, I understand, obviously it's a big jump up to Superbike, and, you're kind of a mom and pop operation. You're not even kind of, you definitely are that. So is that completely out of the question? Do you think that, with some support from some sponsors, you've got a great bike there? Do you think you could at some point, or do you want to move up even higher in MotoAmerica?
I mean, as all racers would say, nobody likes to finish second. They all want to win, right? So,
Right.
I mean, to go to a super bike, I mean, you'll have to go testing and do a lot of stuff to be competitive, and maybe not even with some help, you'll be as competitive as maybe the factory teams, So, I mean, at this point, it looks like I'll finish second for in the championship. So, I mean, it would be cool to do maybe what Andrew Lee did, maybe crown and then go ahead for the second year and maybe take the championship again, but obviously I don't know if that's in the question. It all depends of the finances and what happens,
Mm.
Okay, speaking of finances.
To go superbike racing, it's very, very expensive.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially like as a privateer. I mean, people say, for example, Attack Performance is a privateer, and I mean, honestly, I don't really think that's a privateer. They roll up in a big 18-wheeler and they have kind of factory support, kind of like a satellite team, It's not a privateer. It's not a real privateer. You have like the Twins Cup and the Super Stock class, and like even the Junior Cup class. You have families coming in their 18 by 8 trailer, to go racing. That's a real privateer, somebody that sleeps in their trailer or their camper, or,
Right. Okay, well, speaking of finances, this is a very important question. Who makes more money club racing, you or Jeff May?
Oof, that's a hard one.
Come on.
That's a very good question.
And I'm not going to tell the tax guy.
Oof, that's a good question. I honestly couldn't tell you. Last year, I mean, we pretty much show up to the same event, so we're pretty much going head to head, and I've chased the guy for 3 years, and it's been about 2 years that I've been able to beat him, and we battle for the wins nowadays, and it's pretty much whoever has the luck that day,
That's good.
And
it's funny because
last year we had. Go for it.
No, go ahead, Stefano. I'm going to change the subject right after you say that, but go ahead.
So last year we had like the BMW and the Kawasaki, and we would show up to the events that would pay good for those bikes, and it'll pretty much be a shootout on that bike, So we'll pretty much be in a very similar bike, just going at it, trying to make that contingency money, So it was definitely good racing between both of us.
You have raced. You've done a lot of middleweight racing, R6s, smaller bikes, and now you're on this 1,000. And I kind of mentioned would you move up to Superbike? And that's only because it's a similar bike to what you're riding. Would you ever consider going into super sport, or I don't even know, Twins Cup? Would you? You're a more diminutive rider. What do you feel? How do you feel about riding a big bike? You probably can't muscle it quite like you can with a middleweight or a Twins or something like that. So talk about that difference if you would.
I mean, if you put me right now, if you put me like next to the Stock 1000 guys, I'm probably the shortest one and by far, so that definitely puts a little influence on the riding style, and we just ride different, and I've been able to muscle it around, but I never take nothing out of the question, if an offer comes by maybe, or something happens and it looks promising and it looks good, maybe we'll take it, and at this point we kind of chase, me and my parents, we kind of chase like wherever the money's at, and I follow wherever the money's at. So maybe if a, a factory puts a little contingency into something, it won't be out of the question,
Mm-hmm.
He's a gun for hire, Sean.
I think you're right. It sounds like he's going to go where, and we talked to Jeff May about this earlier in the year. I mean, he kind of looked at the Stock 1000 class from what he was doing in Wera, and he could see that the times were a lot faster this year. So he felt like it was real competitive, and some of the riders groused a little bit about the fact that he's a former factory rider. But you certainly took it to him in that class, and he'll be at Barber again. But have you found that class to be? Well, obviously Andrew Lee, but I mean, the rest of them, Michael and Travis Wyman, I mean, compared to what you do in Wera, is it a pretty competitive class for you?
I mean, I think it's a great class, especially this year. Like how you said, a lot of faster guys showed up to the class, and I think it makes it better. We're racing motorcycles, and we can't choose our battles, so whoever's gonna show up is gonna show up, and that's who we're gonna have to race, at the end of the day. So, I mean, I'm not saying it was right or not right to let Jeff come into the class, but if you kind of look at the class, it's a up and growing class, and maybe putting somebody that was already a past superbike rider or world superbike rider into the class, maybe it just doesn't maybe look that great, you know? A lot of people wasn't happy about it, and a lot of people were okay with it. I honestly didn't care because I've raced Jeff for a long time now, so I knew I could beat him, and I knew it was going to be a tough target. But the class is already stacked with talent, so you know.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Stefano, do you care at all how I feel about that class? Want me to tell you my opinion?
I'll go for it.
I think the more the merrier. Whoever wants to go in there, I'm totally all about it. If JD Beach wants to race Stock 1000, let him do it, because it's only going to make you guys race even harder. And I don't doubt your talent. I don't doubt your spirit and your ability to do even better. So I thought, hey, let's raise the credibility of the class and say, look, we've got a former World Superbikes and factory Superbike guy racing in that series, and I'm beating him. So that's pretty damn good, and you should be proud about that.
Yeah, but yet again, you don't want to make it like, I don't want to say like Superbike show, but it's pretty much a factory show. If you're not on a factory bike, you kind of can't do anything about it, So it would be kind of a shame for the class to go that way too,
Yeah, I think there's got to be somewhere in between.
Because right now you have a lot of locals, and I mean, you have the class has been stacked. We have more than 30 bikes on the grid. So I mean, you have all those locals coming out and trying to go for it, And then maybe when you put a lot of money into the class, or like you put, I mean, I don't know, like a super bike rider into the class, people will look at it that way. Like, oh, I can go out and maybe win this thing, if I do have a good day,
Right.
Yeah.
Like a lot of locals think that way. Like I was one of those myself back in the day, I was like, oh, maybe I can go send it and have a good payday, And now I got stuck doing the whole season. And you have a lot of us that is like, oh, I'll try in one event, and then they just keep going and going and going. So I mean, I think the class is very good at where it's at, and it would be a shame for it to go into like a kind of solo showdown.
Right.
You don't want it to be a solo showdown. You want good racing, good closed racing. You don't want 20 seconds. You don't want to be 20 seconds behind the lead.
Right.
Once you're 30 seconds in the lead, you're not even in the same race, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, this, for me personally, with this podcast, whenever we talk to a rider and I throw out what I would do as a racer or as an organizer of a racing group, I prove time and time again that it's a good thing I do neither of those, because I couldn't, it wouldn't be successful.
You're always pretty much wrong. Like, at least, like, I'd say like 92%, 93% of the time, you're always wrong. And luckily you have me on the show who's like 100% right.
Yeah. I just had to laugh though, because after we had Bobby Fong on, when I did my If I Were the King of the World, I'd put him on a superbike. John Ulrich calls me up and said, hey, I'll put him on a superbike if you've got $300,000 to give me. And I'm like, well, I mean, if I were the king of the world, I would have $300,000 to give you. So no problem. But neither of those are going to happen. So it's good just to talk about. But he didn't seem to see the humor in that.
I'm going to tell you right now, if you had $300,000, you'd give it to Stefano so you could keep getting your free pills.
No doubt about it.
You know what, guys? We got to put a wrap on this. Maybe that's not a good pun, but anyway, Stefano, I appreciate you coming on, and we look forward to Barber. And with Andrew Lee winning his championship already, he's had a good enough year. I'd like to see you go out there and, as you say, send it and put that thing at the top of the podium, and we'll see your smiling face there. Next week. So thank you again for coming on. I know you're a busy guy with a real job, unlike Sean. And Sean, thank you for taking time out of your non-busy day to join me.
Yeah. Non-busy? Yeah, no problem. It's the highlight of my day.
All right, guys. So thank you. And we'll see you next week there, Stefano.
Sounds good. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Stefano. Talk to you guys soon. Okay.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.